Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am Flash, and thank y'all again for joining me. So this video, I want to go over a deck that I'm working on, okay, that doesn't have Shuri, doesn't have Thanos, Darkhawk, none of that, none of those series 4 or 5 cards, none of that, and that I think can work in some form. Now granted, this isn't some ground earth-shattering type of thing here. It's pretty, what I would define to be pretty standard for the most part, but hold on, because I want you to get the full, there we go. It's an archetype that you know pretty well. It's the control archetype, right? So I've called mine control everything. Now granted, I'm sure in some way, shape, or form this is something that you've seen and played with or played against in bits and pieces, maybe Sarah with it, whatever. Well, maybe not this specifically, but it does a few different things, right? So when I first made it, it had Magneto in here as well, and then I took Magneto out and put Rogue and Enchantress in, and I took out something. Okay, but currently here's what we got. We got Sunspot for obvious reasons. It's probably the singular best card in the game at the moment in a vacuum. Daredevil, because when you're trying to control everything happening on the board, it's great to see what your opponent's going to do on turn 5. And not for nothing, I gotta be honest, this deck here is a serious Galactus counter, and I'll get to how and why. Scorpion, because, and I also had Iceman in here, but I took that out. Scorpion, because you're disrupting. This deck does disruption. It has preemptive play. It has reactive play. It counters. It can flood the board slightly. And I say that just because of Green Goblin, but you can gain priority between Sunspot, Lizard, because Lizard's the priority king. Green Goblin, because again, you want that little bit of disruption. Also, I mentioned Galactus before. You want to be able to get as many things on their side of the board as possible. When they play in one lane, throw Green Goblin in another lane, then start to, if they're playing Galactus, you can start to herd them in a direction. Got Rogue, because why not? Yes, I know I have Rogue and Enchantress in here, and I might still play around with that, but right now it's working. Because Rogue can get in with just the 3 costs, and that's a really good, you know, kind of point right there. Storm, because Storm has a place now again with the Space Stone getting nerfed, and Storm is just great. Yes, there's no Scarlet Witch. I like Storm because it shuts the location down, and in a deck like this where you don't have a lot of power to play around with, sometimes you can just play the Storm card and people don't play in it because they're like, okay, I gotta address what's happening in the other lanes. Or you play Storm and then you play Green Goblin in the Storm lane. There you go. Cosmo, because again, we're trying to control everything. And that works well with Daredevil. Polaris, just for that, first of all, 5 power at 3 cost is very good. And on top of that, she can move those things around that, again, if you're trying to control lanes and trying to play around Galactus, she can move things around that mess up your opponent's play pattern. Move a Sunspot or an armor, right, away from each other, right? Things like that. Little disruption, things like that. Shang-Chi, because you almost have to put Shang-Chi in every deck now, but this isn't one of those decks where I'm trying to just shoehorn it in. It's a control deck. I'm trying to literally, I've called it control everything. Enchantress, because same reason as Rogue, but sometimes you want to hit the abilities and not have to, you just want to blanket, take everything. Again, the prime example is that if you Rogue a armor lane, the armor ability is still going to be in effect, and that's counterintuitive. But sometimes you just need to Enchantress that. Sometimes you want to, these cards do similar things, just go about it differently. Sometimes you want to shut down all the ongoing in the lane. Sometimes you want to take it for yourself. Sometimes you want Rogue to take the Darkhawk ability or take the Devil Dinosaur ability, as opposed to just shutting it down completely with Enchantress. So and then Professor X, because it synergizes so well with Daredevil. And again, I've had, and I wish I had gameplay of it, but I can tell you 100% that Professor X works really well in stopping Galactus. Yes, certain things have to happen. The most important thing is you have to have priority. If you don't have priority, it's not going to work so well. But if you have priority going into turn 5 or 6, you know, a lot of Galactus players now are playing Galactus on turn 6. A lot of them are still doing the standard, playing it on turn 5, but I'm noticing more on 6. But if you have Daredevil down and you see all the patterns out, Electro, all of that stuff, and they're looking to, you see that Galactus coming down on turn 5, you slap Professor X right in the Galactus lane, game's over. Okay, because don't forget, Galactus is 2 power. Professor X is 3. That lane is done. That Wolverine that they have that's jumping around, Nimrod, whatever, it cannot get into the Professor X lane. The game's over. On turn 5. Nobody can do anything on turn 6, but you've won. Congratulations. And again, you could do the same thing on turn 6. Because remember, now I had one player beat me using that same pattern. The only difference is they played Shuri and they played Galactus after the Shuri. And then of course Galactus became 4 power and beat me out that way. Because I'm not expecting any, that was genius, because I'm not expecting anybody to play Shuri into Galactus. Who does that? He played Shuri on 4, skipped turn 5, played Galactus. Completely blindsided. Because it's not a usual thing you see. So kudos to that player. But this is my deck. Control everything. Again, it has leeway. You could probably take out Rogue or Enchantress depending on how you feel about it. Considering how many armors are out there, I'd be more lean towards take out Rogue. Maybe you want to throw Magneto back in here, or if you want to go low to try to get try to keep shoring up your priority, put Iceman back in, which also helps with the disruption. So you give your opponent maybe one less thing they can play early in the game, so you can get that priority, so you can make sure going into turn 5, heck, going into 5 or 6, if you don't have Professor X, you could even Cosmo the Galactus or whatever else. That's the beauty of having priority and getting to see what your opponent is going to do. It's a very vital, you know, abilities to have in a card game. So that's it. Control everything or try to control everything. That's the deck. It's like I said, it's not necessarily doing anything that you haven't seen before. Just my little spin on it. No, I haven't looked it up. I don't know if this exact build exists somewhere on one of these sites. I don't know. I haven't looked it up. If it does, I will apologize and give whoever made the deck credit, right? If somebody sees that. But again, I didn't copy it from anybody. Like I said, I have a lot of card game experience over the years. I've played a lot of Magic, and card deck building is something that is a skill that I've picked up and have become very good with. And which again, everybody's not great at building decks, which is why they got that smart deck mode that they're working on to put into this game, because some people just want to get in and play and just try decks and let the system build the decks for them. This is why net decking is so popular in card games. You know, this is why creators put these decks out there for you to try, and hey, if you want to try this one, have at it. I might even put it up on Marvel Snap Zone again, because again, so many of those decks are like so similar and everybody's trying to do a lot of the same thing. There's but a small list of really good playable cards in the game, right? Like you could get rid of like a quarter of the cards and nobody would miss them at the moment. So, you know, it is what it is. But thank y'all again for joining me. I'm Flash. Y'all like what y'all see here. If you're getting any, you know, like anything from this content, whether it be entertainment, educationally, whatever, hit the like button. I'd appreciate it. It goes a long way. And I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace.